there are so many wrong answers. Even in an improvisational setting, if you are with another human being in a room, there are 100% always wrong answers.
It doesn't mean that there isn't space for right answers, and those are still infinite.
So there are many right answers in many different situations, and we'll know more about what Andy and Jeff are discussing. But as you know, right now we are in this setting, which is the Professor Game podcast. And here we interview successful practitioners of games, gamification, game thinking, and game-oriented, game-inspired solutions to help us in the process of creating engagement, retention, loyalty, and motivation. I'm Rob. I'm a consultant, a coach, and I'm the founder of Professor Game. I'm also a professor of gamification, game-based solutions at EFMD, IE Business School, EBS University, and many others around the world. And before we dive into the interview, if you're struggling with retention, if you're struggling with churn, loyalty in your business, and you are looking for ways to make sure you keep those users or those players, you definitely will find our free resources useful. Click on the description and get them right away. Engagers, welcome back to another episode of the Professor Game podcast. We have a couple of repeat guests this time, not just one, but two repeat guests in a single episode. So they were one of the few and very selected of those who will come in couples to an episode. And now they're coming once again. So Mr. and Mischief, are you prepared to engage?
Absolutely.
Born ready.
Jeff and Andy Crocker, welcome back. It's a pleasure to have you back.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us back.
So engagers, if you want the full, original interview with all the questions we always make, you can definitely find that, in the description of this episode for sure. It'll be linked there. We talk about some of the failures, mistakes, lessons learned, favorite games, and all sorts of jazz. But today we're going to talk about something slightly different. We're here today to talk about let me see if I get this right, because to be honest, it was the first time I heard that. We're talking about a zine.
A
Zine.
A zine. So it's kind of a magazine, but not a magazine. It's a zine. What's the difference? Let's start with that.
Well, good. That's a great place to start. Well, typically a zine is something like self-published, and homemade, very much like a DIY ethos.
Nice.
And distributed. This is like 1 unit above a zine in that, like, we're sort of...
there's no hierarchy.
There's no hierarchy. Oh, sorry. I meant, yeah, we've put a little bit more.
No, what I would say is it's like, sometimes a zine is as simple as like a piece of paper that's folded and stapled and hand photocopied.
Okay.
Sometimes a zine is closer to a comic collection. There's infinite, a bajillion ways you can make a zine. This one is somewhere between a zine and a book.
Sure.
So, but it is self-published. It does have a lot of the creative spirit of a zine of, we're going to make it ourselves. It's not under a publisher. It's just folks that have something to say that want to share it with people.
Yeah.
So there's a long history of zines.
Okay. The long history, for sure. Interesting. So you've both worked on, immersive productions, even with giants, Disney, Universal, and now you make a zine. Tiny, potentially analog, but not this time. Well, is it analog this time?
It is. It's completely analog, and we're not doing digital distribution at this time.
So tiny, analog, lo-fi format, right? Next move. How does that come together for you?
We talk a lot about, we have a lot of like people ask us like how we make what we make, and they have a lot of questions about it, because traditionally what we make is experiential. By design, it's like you have to be there in person, and to explain it takes a lot of words. And we felt like we were at this crossroads of either you become a thought leader and tour around and nonstop and write a book about how you make the thing, or because we're parents and we're busy people, you make the thing. And we keep choosing to make the thing versus to talk about making the thing, except with lovely humans like you. And so we didn't have time to make a book or go on a book signing tour. But we did have time to put our thoughts down in a creative way put our fingerprints on our theories and share them with as many people as possible. Jeff, would you agree with this? Because
I think
this is awkward if you don't.
That is exactly what the intent was. And the intent to make it sort of analog was sort of, again, that sort of self-publishing ethos of like wanting to be the ones that got to do it, take a lot of care in it, and have something that people could hold, because that is still experiential. Like getting something, finding a place to sit down, a coffee shop, your bedroom, park, a street corner, and read something is still an experience.
I think that having it be something that you can hold, that has texture, that you could write in, was also the closest way that we could talk about how we do in the way that we do it, which is often analog, textured, and IRL, if you will.
Did you have to unlearn something to work on this from your, bigger projects that and stuff that you've done to get to something like this?
Unlearn.
I don't know if that's a left field question. I know.
No, it's a great question.
It's a great question. I think I feel like the answer is yes-ish. Like there's the yes and no of like definitely putting thoughts of how you convey ideas in a sequential format. This required a slightly different approach and understanding to how that's done. We know we are very comfortable and capable of doing it in person, lots of people all at once, or in person, small amount of people all at once, and having an environment and having other parts and pieces attached to that, whether it's scenery and a setting, whether it's actors and characters. But this was everything right in front of you on a page that has to be printed out. I think required. Yeah, that's a great question, Rob. I don't know about unlearning, but definitely changing how we approached presenting our thoughts.
Yeah, I think I would also say like, we are very used to, and this is sort of what the mini festo, as we're calling it, is about, is that like in our work, when you're in real life with someone, when you're in conversation, you know this because you have conversations all the time.
Usually,
and you're very good at them. Yeah, is that like it's the taking turns, it's the passing back and forth, it's the active listening. It's a very fluid, and there's space to pivot or adjust as you go. But this is like, well, it's printed and
written.
Now it's in someone's hand. It's like one baton pass, as opposed to we're used to multiple baton passes throughout an experience. This is one baton pass. We made a thing and we give it to you, and then goodbye. We hope you enjoy. That is a part of our brain we don't work as often.
Makes sense. So then, I'm not sure if I already mentioned it, but the name of the zine is Infinite Right Answers. And it reminds me always of the Infinite Game. It's in fact a book from a friend, which is called Infinite Games or something along those lines. It's bold, right? Infinite right answers. What does that come to? Like, maybe, is it a hard truth for you guys? You ever question this? Like, what is that? What does infinite right answers for you look like?
Well, the origin of it, I think, came from maybe a pathological and probably like unnecessarily strong feeling I have about scavenger hunts, because I was doing we've worked with museums in the past and stuff, and people like often want a scavenger hunt, and there's something about it. They serve a great purpose, but there are certain kinds of scavenger hunts that are like, go find this sticker in 12 places in the venue. And I have like this visceral, and I was trying to describe why I didn't like that style of interaction. A seek and find. Like why I don't, and I think we were having this conversation, and I was like, I don't like the fact that you're like, you either found the sticker or you did not find. That was very binary. This is where it started from, but then it morphed into something else. Do you know where I'm going with this?
I was
going to pass the baton, but no, I'm still holding it. And this was paired with another visceral, probably over emotional reaction, which is like the hatred of like no wrong answers.
Yes.
Like everybody, like just just like throw something out. It's fine. No wrong answers. There are so many wrong answers in even in an improvisational setting. If you are with another human being in a room, there are 100% always wrong answers. Being racist, hurting somebody, breaking a thing, causing harm to a community, causing harm to a piece of art. Like, those are wrong. Don't do it. So I think the combination of like feelings around scavenger hunts and feelings around no wrong answers, guys. Then we were like, well, what do we like?
Right. It doesn't mean that there isn't space for right answers, and those are still infinite. There's still an infinite amount of right answers, even though there are wrong answers in a sort of open experience.
Yeah. So yeah, it became like sort of a design philosophy, which was like, can we design for infinite right answers while protecting things like both, big C consent, but also like artistic consent and protecting the creative vision. So can you design for infinite right answers knowing that there will always be wrong answers became one of the threads of like everything we do.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
And I think, as you noted, Rob, it makes a bold title.
Makes it even better. Yeah. Good stuff. I like it. You've also, from our chats before and the interactions we've had, you like to talk that you about creating with audiences rather than what most people tend to talk about, which is designing for audiences. What's a small shift that a creator or a teacher can make, this week or in their next session to start creating with rather than creating for?
That's a great question.
Well, I think it's sort of that idea of the baton pass too, which is like, if you can find it in yourself, like, how early can I pass this baton and how much can I trust them to pass it back to me, is a great, like, if you think about it like a workout, like a great exercise would be like, how early in this interaction that I'm having with someone can I pass this baton? She said, realizing she's been talking way too much.
I think that's exactly right, which is how early can you engage with an audience and make sure that they have a little bit of that ownership? You sort of get an understanding. I think the kids call it a vibe check. Know sort of where they're coming from, even though as sort of the facilitator or creator, you know where you want to be going, either in a hard story world of like, this is a story I'm telling, there is an end I need to get to, or more of an open world, like, I can't wait for us to all create this ending together. The best example I can use is tabletop role-playing games, in that there are plenty of opportunities where you're like, this is a story, we're going to live through this story, but I need you to slay this monster, this creature or something, versus the possibility of like, I wonder what these people want to do. Do they want to go slay creatures and monsters and dragons, or do they just want to go explore and go to taverns and talk?
I mean, are you thinking of Sunday's adventure that we had?
We play a role-playing game with our daughter and another family, and it's primarily like, there's no combat. Like, it is all
our daughter really wants to do combat.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, there's some violence.
Some violence. But like, typically, but as I'm usually the one that GMs it, and so understanding what sort of the energy that they are always sort of pushing towards is that sort of co-collaboration from an early stage of like, all right, now I know what kinds of things they're always going to be interested in. But it also means when you get to a place where, I don't know, you have to fight, it makes it all the more impactful for them, because this group typically doesn't want to fight.
And we did spend like several hours on a show. We spent a whole day. We just went shopping for magical items. That was the whole day. We didn't do anything. We just shopped. It was great. I have no money left. I exchanged a lot of gossip for magical items. But I was going to say the other thing about like with TTRPGs is like a great example of like, there's so many different styles you can GM with, and some folks are co-creating earlier and more often than others. It's just a style thing, and we like a lot of co-creation. The other, going back, is like the very first thing that you have to do is decide what are the things that you want to protect. What are the things that you're like, we're not going to change this. So I'm not going to pass the baton for you to paint over a painting I've already made, for example. So yeah, it's a style thing. This is a long answer to a short question, but it was a good question.
No, it all makes sense. And speaking of this, and I'm big on talking about failure, right? And I'm not talking about romanticized failure, TEDx talk failure. Oh yeah, I did this, and then now I am like the king of the world thanks to that failure. I'm asking about, and you guys, I'm sure, I'm not saying you fail often. That's not what I'm saying. But, given the nature of what you guys do, there must be some more difficult points, right? Where things are, as you were describing, they're going somewhere and somebody wants to paint over the painting. And every now and then, of course, within certain restrictions, that might actually happen. So I wanted to ask about one of those times when it went south and you recovered from it, something happened, and maybe how you got back from that, and maybe is there a zine version of this discussion?
Actually, I'm sure there's plenty in the zine of like lessons we had to learn because we're creative partners and married and have a kid, and like we collaborate on so many things. We do
Often.
have I've constantly
every day.
We do have a lot of shorthand. And so getting our shorthand into longhand for another human being to understand, I'm trying to think. I feel like there had to be examples where we're like, this makes perfect sense. And someone was like, what?
I think failure, I think, is all the little, I think from an early stage in working together, we knew that like play testing was really important. And yet we continue to learn as we play test things, the parts that we've missed or haven't tested or thought to test. And those always create interesting moments of scrambling to solve something. The best example I can use recently, since last we talked, Andy designed a whole art piece, experiential art piece for the Los Angeles Public Library, and it's interactive. You come to the library and you have to check out a special box, and it leads you on an experience in this library branch. It's really cool. It's called the Bureau of Nooks and Crannies.
Thanks. It is cool.
It is cool. And this is a great example. We built some of these boxes and we tested them with our friends and colleagues, and still we told people, great, you're going to have to do this one interaction. And when it finally got installed in place inside the library, people were astonishingly overly gentle with it. They were so respectful of the library environment that they were not moving at a pace that we expected them to. We thought it'd be like, oh, it's a slot. You put the thing in the slot.
Yeah. A part of this is, I mean, we can spoil this. There is a part of it where it's the finale.
Yeah.
Where you put a piece of paper into a slot. That's it. That's all you have to do.
And yeah, there's a mechanism in there that
it triggers some magic.
Oh
my God.
They're so gentle.
No one will, they'll just gently, because people want the library to love them as much as they love the library. And they just want to do right by the library, and they want to do, and so.
And that's great, by the way.
It's great. We love it. We love a library. But people's gentleness would actually prevent it from triggering.
Yeah. When we were testing it in our house, we had a bunch of people come in, and it was in our house. Great, put this in.
We're not testing it in the library.
And then when we got to the library, we just watched people be so gentle, and basically like this, as they put things in this slot, like it didn't trigger the thing that we were trying to do. So we've made some adjustments that we've had to do in person, and it's delightful. But it was a weird mistake that we probably never would have guessed.
Well, I think, and as we did paper prototyping, if we saw that behavior happening, but it's so alien to us because usually you're just like in an escape room, you're like 2 fingers of pressure only, like please don't rip the lamps off the wall to look for a clue. Or like if you're in, designing a children's museum, you have to design it for basically
the most powerful force of nature on the planet, which is a middle school field trip.
like everything's going to break. So we were shocked when the problem was everyone being gentle.
Interesting. I love that. I love, problems that come out of the blue, essentially. So, you mentioned, scribbles on receipts of the zine, diagrams that are unpolished, absurdity. Like, what's the role of imperfection, right? When inviting people to play instead of perform, right? What's imperfection look like, and what do you suggest people to do in those spaces?
I think there's a couple things. I think it's really important to lead by example. I think if you come off polished and controlled and perfect, then it's a lot less easy to engage. With the piece, I don't stop me if I'm wrong. Don't stop me. No, I mean, I think, let's use like performance, for example. You want to make an interactive performance. If you have 2 actors doing a scene, ba-ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba, very clever, hilarious lines, and then they just turn to the audience and are like, what should we do next? The audience is going to be like, what? No, you are clearly 2 actors talking to each other. I am not an actor. I'm just, what is happening? But if we engage and are a little imperfect, a little less slick, and a little less memorized, more learned, it's much more of a acceptable invitation for all kinds of learners, all kinds of folks. Whereas only a certain kind of person is like excited to interrupt a scripted, slick, perfectly timed scene. So that would be the performance version. I think with this, we tried to do the same thing on paper.
Yeah, I think that's that's exactly right. I think that's why the sort of zine mentality spoke to us, was because it's purposefully, handmade. It is, us trying to get our thoughts together. It's not fully realized in perfect diagrams. It's a lot of scribbles and dots, but there's a little bit of everything.
We wanted it to feel like the way that we talk to each other and the way we joke and our sensibilities, and invite people to come along. So pretty early on, we say in the piece, we're like, now you try. And there's just like a place for you to interact with the book itself.
I love it. And, are there any sort of exceptions to this? Like, was there a part of the zine that, that you almost cut for being either too weird, too rough, or that you were just about to and then said, no, we have to stick to our principles? Did something like this ever happen?
I'm sure, but I can't think of anything.
We more expanded than contracted, but I'm sure there's something on the cutting room floor.
Good question.
Especially on the side of, this is too imperfect, or, that kind of, because you were talking exactly for that. Like, we want it to be intentionally imperfect and so on. But then, of course, eventually it's a zine and you reread it and you go like, this needs some rewriting, or this is a bit too far, or I don't know. Did that happen? Or were you tempted to do it?
That ended up at least on the like post-it note for later. I mean, because I think we very much subscribe to like, nothing gets thrown away. Everything is part of compost or, ready for the next. We do literally have like a bucket of ideas that got cut. So I think some of the things that ended up in the bucket are maybe some things that had more to do with specifically performance or producing or like literally tippy tap writing. I think everything in here ended up being stuff you could leverage for anything, whether you were having a dinner party or making an interactive theater piece, which is basically the same thing. That was a terrible example. Whether you're making a cake or making a cake, that was not helpful. I need a better scale.
Yeah, that I think that's accurate. Yeah,
amazing.
Anything else too imperfect?
I think like we've said, like it was the challenge was, it has been easier and easier for us to talk about our ideas on how to build a kernel into an experience, but then putting that on paper, and then like you're saying, Rob, like have it be, you could keep reading it, and every time you're like, yes, this makes sense. Yes, I understand this. What was that? Oh, right, I understand this. That was the challenge, is making sure that it was understandable for as many people as we hope it is.
I think the thing that has the most drafts, because I saved them because there's like a stack. So we spent a day talking to a friend of ours, Unique Trapman O'Brien, who's brilliant. If you don't know him, everyone should. He's amazing. He was staying at our house, and we were at the kitchen table, and I was trying to describe this thing that Jeff and I had a shorthand for. And there is just a stack of papers of absolutely like nonsensical infographics that we were trying. Like, is it a Venn diagram? Is it a flow chart? Is it like, is it a picture of an atom? Like we're trying like all of this stuff. And I still have them. There's like just a stack of attempts to explain this feeling. And then one of our collaborators, Regan Chagall, was can I spoil this?
Yeah,
we
can
say that Regan was just like, oh, it's a bicycle. And we were like, what? Yeah. So it took us, we drew a million versions before Regan took one look at it and was like, oh, you're talking about a bicycle.
So for those of you not seeing it, it was literally a bicycle.
Yeah. No, it wasn't a Venn diagram. It wasn't a chemistry thing.
It's not something that looks like a bicycle that you interpret. No, it was a bicycle.
It's a literal bicycle.
It's a bicycle.
Cool. So if somebody right now flips through infinite right answers and only remembers one idea of everything that's there a week or a month later, take whatever time you want, what do you hope that thing could be?
This is like the Newlywed Game. Are we going to pick the same thing?
I think so. I mean,
that was not my intention, but it could be fun as well.
No, I think there's a lead. I think obviously the notion of there are wrong answers, but that doesn't preclude you from designing for infinite right answers. But I think the thing we hope people remember the most is the bicycle.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say that too, but I was worried that you'd be like, it's not the title is the thing.
Yeah, because the bicycle represents a concept Andy has talked previously about, which are the two key elements to consider when making decisions as you build something, which is
confidence and generosity. And the idea is that oftentimes when people are not feeling confident, that is when they are the least generous. And when people are the least generous, and you're just looking at someone being, unable to collaborate or unable to release control, that oftentimes you can go like, oh no, you're scared. Okay. And so you can kind of treat both, right? If you practice generosity and you go like, okay, I'm going to play test this. It's not ready yet. I can't control it. These people are going to experience it and it's going to be a hot mess, but I'm going to force myself to be generous in this moment. And then you get through that, you will be more confident. And then the next time you will be more generous. Or if you're like, I feel like I'm giving too much away, like I just feel like I'm losing the thread and that people are kind of answering these ways that are harmful. Well, you build up your confidence, find out where you need to have more training, control, et cetera, et cetera. So confidence and generosity, which is why you can see why we had to draw like a million pictures of it to explain its relationship, is at the core of all of it. I think it's the most applicable because it applies when you're at the beginning of the design process.
Yeah, it applies to everything.
It applies to when you bring on like collaborators. So let's say you're a narrative designer and you're bringing on folks to do the visuals. You have to approach that with confidence and generosity. If you're controlling everything that the visual designer is working on because you're scared that the story isn't solid enough, that's not going to make for a healthy collaboration. All the way up through rehearsal. If you're doing a live experience, how you train your actors, you're training them for confidence and generosity. And then if they do that, then the people experiencing it will then go on
to feel confident and be generous.
And then when they're bringing somebody let's say it's a more traditional game, the people The best people that are explaining how a game is played to somebody else are the people that are confident and generous. I know this game. I love this game. I want you to have this experience. So I'm going to be clear in the way that I'm onboarding you, and on and on. And then maybe people are just like nicer humans. And then maybe we save the world. I don't know. Seems
beautiful.
far-fetched.
Beautiful. I love it. I love it. It's a good way to focus on these things. Jeff, Andy, it's being an absolute pleasure having you here. I don't know if there's anything you'd like to highlight before we wrap things up. Anything we haven't said, anything I haven't asked, because again, as I said before we started, I didn't really completely read the magazine or the magazine. Come on, Rob, you can do better. The zine. I did not read the zine.
The not a book. You can call it the not a book.
The not a book.
Is there anything else? I don't know. I hope people get one and are excited about sort of reading through a approach to a creative process and sort of the elements that we think go into building that confidence and generosity of your own work, whatever that may be. Right from the very beginning, we say this is not for just like in-person experiences or immersive theater. It is for if you're making a recipe or a blog. Does anyone have blogs?
Yes, so many people have blogs.
Newsletter.
Blogs are back, baby.
Right. It could be for a dinner party. It can be for a band. Like any of these things, like it really does speak to what it means to be creative out in the world.
I agree with everything you said.
Oh, great. Well,
that sounds absolutely amazing. Guys, where can people find the magazine, more about your work, what you're doing, or if they just want to get into your world deeper, how can they do that?
We are at mrandmischief.fun, www.mrandmischief.fun. And then typically our social media of choice is Instagram, where we are at Mr. and Mischief.
Plus, we have a newsletter that is both occasional and informational. So everyone should sign up for that.
On our website.
Amazing. Thanks again for coming back, for explaining everything about your zine, not book, not magazine. Amazing. Have a great rest of your day, and engagers, as you know, at least for now and for today at least, it is time to say that it's game over. Hey engagers, and thank you for listening to the Professor Game podcast. And since you're interested in this world of creating motivation, engagement, loyalty using game-inspired solutions, how about you join us on our free online community at Professor Game on School. You can find the link right below in the description, but the main thing is to click there, join us. It's a platform called School. It's for free, and you will find plenty of resources there. We'll be up to date with everything that we're doing, any opportunities that we might have for you. And of course, before you go on to your next mission, before you click continue, please remember to subscribe using your favorite podcast app and listen to the next episode of Professor Game. See you there.